It's Wednesday, the 16th of March, 2022. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's jump into it. Story number 1. Last year, there were so many big deals on the local market. It's been a little bit quiet lately, but there was one in the offing yesterday.
There was. New Zealand-based infrastructure investor HRL Morrison wants to buy telecommunications services and fibre owner Unity Group. They want to pay $3 billion for it, and that triggered a 27% jump in Unity's share price yesterday. Now, Unity basically lays down fibre cables to new greenfield housing developments and residential estates. It has been booming recently. Last half year, its profit was about 6 times what it was the previous half year. No wonder the investor wants that one. There was also another deal in the last 24 hours. Rio Tinto moved to take control of the Oyu Tolgoi project in Mongolia, bidding $3.7 billion for its partner in the copper mine, a group called Turquoise Hill, which is listed in Toronto. Rio already owns 49% of the group. It wants the whole lot. If it gets it, it will end up owning 2/3 of the Mongolian copper mine, one of the 5 biggest in the world, while the Mongolian government will own the other third. Interesting, these two. They're 2 big deals within 24 hours of each other, but really the whole M&A space has been a little quieter so far this year. That's because of all the uncertainty around the place due to interest rates, due to inflation, and of course due to the war in Ukraine.
Of course. Okay, story number 2. The Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, has made it pretty clear in the last day that coal-fired power stations aren't going anywhere, at least in the short term.
Yes, he said fossil fuel industries will be around for decades and demand for coal will rise until 2030. He said it was necessary to run the stations currently operating for as long as possible as the transition to renewable continues. His point is that you can't turn off coal-fired power stations because then there wouldn't be enough energy to run the economy. And we're talking electricity in homes and businesses here. The opposite side of the argument is that the government hasn't done enough to speed up the shift to renewables. Bottom line is coal-fired power stations are here to stay for a while.
All right, story number 3. Sean, you mentioned before the war in Ukraine, and the war is now 3 weeks old. Russia hasn't had the quick success that it wanted, and the longer the war goes on, the greater the human tragedy and also the flow-on effects for the rest of the world.
Yes, Michael. For many of us, that will come back in terms of fuel prices. We know a lot about that, but also higher food prices. Many of those food prices were already rising because of weather conditions and supply chain disruptions even before the invasion. For example, over the past year, coffee prices are up nearly 70%. Wheat's up about the same amount, though much of that is because of the war. Cheese prices are up 26%, milk's up 37%, the list goes on. Orange juice and rice, 20% higher than a year ago. Corn, 30% higher. Sugar, 20% higher. It really will soon start to feed through to our everyday costs. We're all going to feel them.
Okay, story 4, Sean, some good news for anyone who likes cruises, and I don't know if you're one of them, but if you are, good news, Sean. The ban on international cruise ships will be lifted next month. That's 2 years after being imposed. That's a long time.
I've never been on a cruise, have you?
No, I haven't. But now we can.
We can, because the Health Minister, Greg Hunt, said the decision to lift the ban was based on medical advice and the National Cabinet has agreed. Now, the ban was first introduced in March 2020. It will end this month. Pre-pandemic, around 600,000 passengers took a cruise from Australia each year. Then came COVID and the outbreak on the Ruby Princess, which docked in Sydney, and 2,650 passengers disembarked. An inquiry ultimately found the ship was linked to at least 900 infections and 28 deaths. Anyway, the ban's now being lifted, which is great news for the industry.
Now, Sean, story number 5. I know you are a man of the people, so this will probably not interest you at all, but Qantas is reinstating first class on its A380 flights between Sydney and LA in late March.
Whew. What a relief for people like you and I.
That's right.
Now, since resuming the A380 flights in January, Qantas has been upgrading some business class passengers into the best seats while only providing business class catering and pyjamas, the all-important pyjamas. But that frequent flyer perk is about to end. Stretching out in the 14-seat A380 first class cabin will normally cost you $14,330 one way, but Qantas is now offering a discounted fare of $12,380 on their first class flights to get people back into those seats. Will you be lining up for one, Michael?
I will not be lining up anytime soon.
Me neither.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Wednesday, the 16th of March, 2022. Remember to hit follow on the podcast, and if 5 minutes isn't quite long enough, if you want something with a little bit more detail, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed on your podcast platform. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.